Phil, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, Eric? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So we met shooting PRS. You were shooting PRS. I was just burning powder.
Yeah. We met at Matt Brousseau's match, and I think we were squatted together. And
Jurassic Classic or one of those, right?
yeah, before I think it wasn't CCC. It was the other range
Yeah.
that closed down, right?
I don't know. Yeah, whatever it was. It was over by. I think that's where they had the Jurassic Classic because that's where the
That's right.
dinosaurs were at. And
Yeah.
and can't think of the name of the town. It was actually in Morgan, Texas, the town, but the closest one was where the dinosaurs are at, whatever that is.
I remember squatting with you, and dude, I remember when you when you would get down in the prone, and you just shoot these super tight groups on the on like troop lines and stuff like damn, that dude's loads of dialed. And then one of the guys in the squad was like, "Do you not know who Eric Cortina is?" He's like an F class shooter. I'm like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, and then then I'd shoot precision on you like, okay, this guy he needs to just shoot prone forever. Yeah, it's my strengths and my weaknesses, just like everybody else, right?
That's right. That's right. I mean, it's good to see even you, with you being a well known and renowned F class shooter, you're willing to step out of your comfort zone for growth, your own growth, right?
Exactly, and that was the main thing.
So
it's harder, I think, for somebody like myself, and I'm going to speak for myself, just my own experience. It's harder to step out of the comfort zone because people have expectations, right? But like I was talking to Robert Brantley about it, and he feels the same way. I don't care, dude. I will go and just lose. I don't care. As long as I'm learning, I don't care. But like what I was saying is people will be like, oh, this guy's supposed to be some badass shooter, and he's over here just sucking. Well, yeah. We all suck at some point, you know?
yeah, I need to get better at that. I think I still struggle with that. I just had this conversation with Kaylin that I feel like we put our own targets on our own back, expecting to perform. But like you said, I mean, we're going out there and we're failing in order to learn. You know what I mean? So that we can, tell other people that we want to get in, do well in the sport, not to fuck up where we fucked up. If I don't know if I'm able to cuss on your podcast.
Oh, dude, hammer down.
Okay.
This is. I mean, we're just being real, right? And
Yeah.
that's precisely how I feel. I'm like, don't get me wrong. At some point, that was me as well. It's like, oh man, I can't do that because what if I lose, and what are people gonna say? And people know me on social media and blah blah blah, right? And finally, I just got past all that, and I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. I'm hindering myself by having that mentality, and that's why I'm like, I'm gonna go shoot some PRS, and I suck at it. I've done. Brousseau said, man, you actually did pretty good because I shot my first 2-day match. He was there. He won it, like every freaking other 2-day match that he attended. But I think I finished 15th. It was a national match, right? Like a 2-day match, and I finished 15th. And he's like, dude, that's really good for like your first time shooting a PRS kind of 2-day match. And I'm like, I guess, but it had a lot of prone stages.
What got you into like wanting to? My curiosity is like, what got you into wanting to produce content?
So I just wanted. So there was a point in time in my life where I was like completely freaking broke, like had no money, right? And I would go out but then I had this burning desire to shoot long range and things of that nature. So I would go out and buy whatever, I'd save up some money and buy ammo or buy a piece of gear, and then it wouldn't work for me. And it was just so bad. Like I just felt so sick to my stomach that I pretty much wasted money that I didn't have doing this, right? And it was just like a double whammy of frustration, right? And anyway, when I finally and the problem was I would go out and learn, and it just didn't work out. All these things that I would read, like neck sizing, literally, I neck sizing bit me so hard because that's all I read. Oh, you got a neck size, and finally, when I said, you know what, I started learning and said, you know what, enough of this. I'm just gonna test on my own. And when I started learning, I said, you know what, I'm gonna help people. Like I'm just gonna put the stuff out there and hopefully avoid somebody what I had to go through, right? That frustration. If I wasn't so stubborn, I would have quit just because it was so frustrating. And I figured if I can avoid that frustration for some people, they're going to stick around and, get to the fun part, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I like that. I think it keeps you true to who you are and who I've seen you present yourself, not only in person but on your YouTube channels. I thoroughly enjoy how you're able to, because I mean, realistically, there's long range shooting is boring. Is boring. Like when you watch somebody shoot, I'd rather watch paint dry, right? But figuring out ways, and I think you've hit the nail, especially with the reloading part. Your like just your personality and the spin that you have to it, it keeps it engaging. Because I mean, reloading is a very mundane thing. I just having my girlfriend help me beside brass.
No, it's not. It's
and yeah,
it's the repetitive aspect of it, right? That's what makes it mundane. I remember really enjoying working up loads. Like I just did that this morning, right before. I was out there at 7 a.m. in 40 degrees and about 8 to 10 mile an hour winds, shooting at 1,000 yards, just tuning because it's still exciting. But yeah, the whole the repetitive aspect of, oh man, I got to load 300 rounds or whatever. Yeah, that gets a little boring sometimes.
have you, like during a part of your career, have you felt like you lost a little motivation to work up loads or whatnot, or
Yes, at some point I think I have for sure, but I just have to find something that motivates me, and it may be, and that's kind of part of the reason I started shooting PRS. I'm like, you know what, I need to go just take a break from F class for a little bit, mentally. Right, I was still shooting F class, but I'm gonna go and take a break mentally and just go shoot something else. I also took up shooting pool, and I'd go to the local, whatever it was, and they had league night on Wednesday nights, and I'd go over there on Wednesdays and Fridays and just get my ass handed to me, and just that fire would reignite. It, obviously on a different sport, but I'd come home and shoot pool for freaking 6 or 8 hours just because I got my ass handed to me, right? And to me, that's a motivator, big motivator. When I get my ass handed to me. But yeah, sometimes I just and once that happens, I'm like, okay, I need to get back into it and just kind of start going through just what matters, what doesn't matter, and experimenting, and then all of a sudden you go out and I don't know, I may find something else that I don't know, I may come up to I may find something that oh wow, this I'm gonna experiment this and see if it works and see if it makes a difference. And I go out and shoot, and if I find something that makes a difference, and now I'm dying to go to the next match to see if it really, goes, see if it transfers to the target and to the scores. I don't know. So yeah, I always find a way to keep it exciting. It's hard.
Are you still pretty active in the F class community as far as what you need to shoot to be competitive, essentially?
Well, so I'm ramping up again.
Yeah.
And this is something that I found that I need to do myself, because being constantly at the top, or trying to be, is very, very tiring. It takes a lot of effort. Showing up to a match and shooting a match is it's not that hard. It's fun. Yep. Showing up to a match and expecting to win, it's a whole nother level, preparation wise and performance wise. And if you try to do that every match, you're just going to burn out. So what I do is I go through cycles. Like the World Championship was in 2017. And then after that, I pretty much took about a year or two off, where I just shoot 2-3 matches a year, and that's it. No club matches, nothing. Just I would show up to Nationals, Southwest Nationals, and Texas State. Okay? And but even then, like, I showed up to Texas State, and I won Texas State in 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2019. Okay? Yeah. And I was like, well, I don't have to. And then I show up to Nationals, and I get like top 5. And I'm like, I don't have to do. Well, then it started to taper off. Then it's like, oh shit, I didn't even make top 10 now. Holy crap, I didn't even make top 20 now. And I'm like, but I didn't really care, because, it's like, whatever. But now that the World Championship's coming up again next year, it's like, oh man, I need to start shooting again. Because, you lose it. Yeah. And I'm like, I need to start shooting again. And that's why this year I started to ramp up, because the World Championship is next year in South Africa, in March. So I laid out a plan. I was like, okay, I got to go shoot this match, that match, shoot some club matches in between, get 2 or 3 barrels ready, so that I can have the best of the best when I go to the World Championship, because you only get a chance every 4 years. Yeah. And now, because of COVID, it's been 5 years. So anyway. That's how that goes. But anyway, Mr. Podcast, you're interviewing me, and that's supposed to be the other way around. All right. So, right back at you. I know you were a sniper, Marine sniper, correct?
I was.
So how did
previous life?
Yeah, I mean, I follow you on social media. How do you even get to the military? What gets you? Is that where you started liking guns, or was it before?
It's interesting, Eric. I tell this to all my students in class. Like, I didn't shoot growing up. My parents migrated from the Philippines in the 70s, and so they didn't have any firearms. My dad had some pistols and maybe some shotguns, and we'd go to the range maybe once a year and play with that. But the first rifle I ever shot was when I enlisted in the Marine Corps, and I think, looking back, and this was 15, 16 years ago now, why I enlisted in the Marine Corps, it was for reasons that were, just, I felt like that's what I needed to do to become a man. And obviously I had purpose of serving my country. I knew I wanted to serve my country, but, there's just a lot that goes into looking back of why I enlisted in the Marine Corps. And I became an infantryman, and I literally just stumbled upon becoming a sniper. Like, it was on accident, because again, I played video games growing up. I played a lot of first person shooter games, and I honestly, before enlisting in the military, I wanted to make video games, right? And I became a sniper, or joined the Scout Sniper Platoon, and I just absolutely fell in love with the craft of being a sniper. And what really, stuck to me was the marksmanship and the long range shooting, all the math, and taking that tiny little bullet and being able to place it out at a specific time and place, and control that. And and again, in my early 20s, especially with us being at the height of the war, obviously there was things of wanting to serve our country, kill bad guys and all that stuff. But now that I'm wiser, I've got a 13-year-old, like, my perspective's changed. But yeah. And so I did that time in the Marine Corps, was a Scout Sniper instructor. And that's when I first started shooting PRS. And I remember going to my first military competition. It was down in Arkansas, and it was a team comp. And I mean, we showed up, and like it was my first time shooting any kind of match format, and I felt like we shot like dog shit. And I was like, man, I shouldn't even be here. And we ended up taking like second in our class. I'm like, what the hell? And then I remember one of the instructors was like, yeah, you ever heard of the PRS? And I'm like, what the hell is the PRS? Like, oh, civilians do this for fun. I'm like, civilians do this shit for fun. And then next dude, literally on the flight home, I'm like on sniper side. I'm looking up fucking gear. And this is where my rabbit hole started. This was in 2015. So, and I'd been a sniper since 2000. I've been a sniper officially since 2011, but I joined the sniper community in 2008.
So now you're learning about PRS, right? And when did you first decide to jump in and say, I'm going to go shoot a PRS match? And this is a two-part question. And did you think, I'm going to go show these guys how it's done?
Oh yeah, 100%. So again, backstory to that. So I bought all my stuff. My first custom rifle was actually a rifle that was already built, and someone was selling it because he essentially just didn't have access to the range as frequently as he wanted to. So he's selling this 308 exact, like to the T, what I could afford and what I was looking for, which was a Manners T4 Alpha, true Remington 700 in a 308 with a Bart line, 24-inch barrel. And it had a Vortex Razor Gen 1 on it. And everything, again, that was in my price bracket. And not only that, just like what I was like looking for building my rifle. And so I ended up buying that. And as I was essentially, going through the evolution of acquiring gear, right? Because it's not just once you get your rifle, now it's just these little things, right? Like a shooting bag, two round holder. I reached out to
I'm looking at your background. I can see all the gear that you need.
Yeah. I ended up going with Short Action Precision. They were the go-to dealer for all things, precision rifle equipment. And those guys, Rich, after I emailed him from my work email, he had said, hey, are you in Southern California? I was like, yeah. And then he invited me to this forum, which was SoCal Precision Rifle Team. And he's like, hey, every third Sunday we have a match at this place. You should just come check it out. And so I was like, yeah. So it was like the summertime of 2016, summertime of 2016. And I had went, and I was like, oh, I got this. Cause at this point to my career, other than sniper school, I had been to advanced sniper, urban sniper, and mountain sniper. And for all three of those classes, I was the high shooter. And so I was like, oh, I got this. And I got raped. And the 308 shooter that beat me, right? Because I was just thinking about, like, because obviously the guys that are in the 6th Creed, whatever, I knew they were going to outperform me. And I was still learning cartridges then, but I was like really just aiming for the 308. I mean, the guy who was running the 308 demolished me, and he was a gardener.
Oh, that's awesome. That is like the best story I've ever heard. Oh man, how did you find out? Did you go up to him and say like, hey man, what unit are you on, or what? I don't know. Just
no. So I obviously, like, I didn't go out off the bat, saying that like I was, because at this time I was a scout sniper instructor. And so just over time, because of how small that group was, like we just became super close. And I still remember, we kept in touch. But yeah, that's what he did. He essentially just manicured lawns in LA full time. And I was like, dude, like, my hat's off to you. But that, like,
talk
honestly,
about a modern day sniper, huh?
Right. And honestly, that lit a fire in my ass, because because what one of the things that is like, again, everyone thinks that, when you get to become a scout sniper instructor, like, you're shooting all the time and stuff like that. When in reality, like, you're there for the students, and, you're teaching all the time and stuff like that. And so the amount of proficiency that we do get behind a rifle is very minimum. And so, I remember standing up on the line, like yelling at these kids, things like keep your face on the gun, follow through all these things. Well, it's easy to stand up and do that and not and I wanted to see, like, well, am I doing that myself when no one's watching, or if push comes to shove, when it's time for me to need to perform my task as a sniper. And so that's where I started competing on the civilian side. I feel like that was me to be able to put my money where my mouth was as an instructor. And then slowly I started to see the gap between what the civilians knew about long range shooting and what I knew as a sniper in the Marine Corps. And again, I think when people, correct me if I'm wrong, but when people think of like Marine sniper, they think of like obviously Tom Berenger, Chris Kyle, or Bradley Cooper, Chris Kyle, and Mark Wahlberg.
Baby.
Yeah, Carl Hathcock. Like, these guys like know everything about a sniper rifle, and
Right.
that's not necessarily the case. We know what we need to know about our rifle system, the M48 series sniper rifle, but when it comes to actually long range and going into ballistics and stuff like that, I found out that a lot of what I was taught and what I used to teach was just a regurgitation without really true depth and understanding of like what I'm teaching. So
yeah, I get asked that a lot when people find out that I'm a long range shooter, and I hardly ever like to talk about it because it's people don't really understand, right? Especially what I do, right, which is a very specialized type of shooting, and but they find out that I shoot long range, right? What do you do? Shoot long range, and that's kind of how I leave it, right? And then they're like, how far? I'm like, 1,000 yards, just known distance. And I throw out the known distance because that kind of diminishes it, right? In our field, it's kind of known distance. Okay, whatever. And then they're like, oh, wow, 1,000 yards. And I forget that most people have never shot past 100, right?
yeah.
And I go, yeah. And they're like, are you any good? I'm like, I do all right. And I just try to like, all right, let's move on to something else, right? But a lot of people are interested about long range shooting. The minute you say long range shooting, you kind of got them, right? But anyway, the question always pops up of, are you as good as a sniper, right? And I'm like, oh no, never. Like those guys, I said I can outshoot them, but I can't out snipe them. Like I wouldn't get in a freaking, like battle against them. But I said I'd shoot against them, no problem. And I think with my skills, I can beat a sniper. I said, but you have to understand, my sport is totally different. I said, we have all the best gear. And I said, so, I said, could a sniper beat me? Yeah. If they came out and started shooting yeah, definitely, but, yeah, I always get that question. Are you as good as a sniper? And it's hard to explain the differences.
Yeah.
Because mainly I really don't know the difference. I've been learning a lot lately now that Jason, is here. Because I ask a lot of questions, but
I think it's I'm glad you say that, because there's two different contexts, right? Like being a sniper and being a shooter. When you're a sniper, right? When you pick up a sniper rifle is meant to kill another enemy combatant, right? Whereas like all these rifles behind me, what I call precision rifles, they're just meant for fun, right? They're all competitive rifles. Maybe I've got one hunting rifle behind me, made for hunting a four-legged critter, but I wouldn't consider any of my rifles that I own now a true sniper rifle, because it's not meant to. Those aren't meant to hunt people, right? Although at the end of the day, we all understand that firearms were invented to kill people, but I think there's a difference there, and when people. I like to correct people with like, hey, that's a nice sniper rifle. It's like, it's not a sniper rifle. Like, this is a sniper rifle. And I show them old videos or photos of like my M48-5 or M48-6. So yeah, I think, shooting and sniping are two different worlds. So,
I I can be a smart ass sometimes. You've known me well enough that you know that this does not come as a surprise to you. Uh, but I don't know. I was talking to somebody and they got very persistent about how, because I did say, yeah, I can outshoot snipers, no problem. It's just, but this is a different game. And then he kind of took a little offense to that. And I said, anyway, so it turned into a bit of a discussion, almost an argument. And I said, you don't understand. I said, they have different skill sets than me, right? It's different. Yeah, but they're shooters in the army and blah blah blah, or Marines or whatever. And if the military does something, it's perfect and this that, and and they go into this. He went into this big rant, and I said, okay, so you telling me that if somebody, I said, because you do realize they have drivers in the military as well. There's people that actually drive. He said, yeah. I said, you're telling me you can take one of those people and simply because they drove in the military, you can throw them into a NASCAR race or Formula One and they would win? Like, is this what you're telling me? Well, no, that's just stupid. You're taking it out of context. I said, no, it's literally the same thing. And anyway, we finally had to agree to disagree. But whatever.
I think there's definitely a lot of misconceptions about the sniper community that I love to talk about openly and to other people, because it's interesting. It's interesting to hear the perception of what, again, people think snipers do all the time, right? And it's just like shooting. I maybe when I was active as a team leader, or even before I became a team leader in my scout sniper platoon, maybe we hit the range once every 3 months, and that was a lot. And we would only shoot maybe 30 to 40 rounds per shooter every those 3 months. Is crazy, right? Because you got a 30-man platoon. And your platoon is only allotted, let's say, I'm just throwing a number out there, 960, which is or 920, which is a crate of 118 LR, which is 920 rounds. And now you have to divvy that up between every shooter in the platoon so that everyone understands how to, work a sniper rifle. Because again, when we're in combat, any one of us could be on the gun. So now, as a team leader, I have to say, okay, well, I'm going to give some of my rounds to Private so-and-so or Lance Corporal so-and-so, because I'm also getting ready for him to go to sniper school so that he can pass. So now, as a team leader, I'm only shooting 20 rounds as my sustainment every 3 months. Where just yesterday when I went to go shoot and practice, I burned, 45 rounds in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
How many rounds did you shoot this morning for your load testing?
Let me see. 70. I was testing and practicing. Yeah. Yeah, no, we go through ammo quite a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and yeah, that's got to be tough to stay sharp when you can only do that much.
Have you met any snipers in the F-class community that brought their crate or craft over?
Yeah, there's one. There's one sniper. I think he was Army. That he's actually been a national champion. So
cool.
He can shoot.
Yeah. I think it's just
Emo Coven.
Just a completely different type of shooting, which I think the more that I dive into long range and everything about it, I think it's what you do. I'd love, again, I'm planning on picking your brain here in the future of just like how you do what you do, because once I think when you get to a certain level of performance in the PRS community, mentally and capability wise, like it really comes down to like how confident are you in your rifle?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had plenty of conversations with people about that.
Well, Speedy was here yesterday. He was here all day, and we had all kinds of discussions. And Speedy being a gunsmith and a competitor, Bancher's Hall of Fame shooter, uh, he kept emphasizing you you gotta let the rifle do most of the work. He says if you can't rely on your rifle, what can you rely on, right? So the rifle has to be 100% because we're not 100% all the time. But you can at least make sure that the rifle is, so that when that opportunity presents itself, you at least have the chance at stepping through that door and collecting that trophy. But if your rifle's not up to par, it's hard. It's really hard because you know this yourself, right? You can be the best shooter in the world. You can hand the best shooter in the world a rifle with a bat scope, or that's just not even sighted in, or give them the bad dope, and that's it. Doesn't matter how good they are, they're gonna miss.
Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously, I'm making an assumption here. I said obviously, but that's just an assumption that I'm making. I assume the gear now is better than what you had in the Marines.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the gear that I use now as a competitive shooter, or just the gear that snipers are using today?
Well, you as a competitor versus what you used in the in the Marines.
Oh yeah. Oh God. In the Marine Corps, I remember, shooting off these. I have the tripod here, but or actually the tripod that's right there was my first tripod, which is a Manfrotto, and man, when you're like the first thing that your seniors tell you to get when you get to a sniper platoon is this like gear list, right? And you're a private first class making you're making like $800 a month.
Wow.
Right. I mean, food's taken care of, housing's already taken care of. So like your paychecks are freaking still slim.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're telling you to buy this $600 tripod and put together this $500 ghillie suit. And you're like, what the hell? And yeah, I now I've got really right stuff tripods. I mean, I've got spotting scopes. It's amazing where we've come for the long range industry as a community, as a result of, I think, obviously competition, but also from the demand of warfare that required specific equipment and gear. But I think still to this day, are not, I would say, more or less the big Army and big Marine Corps sniper programs, they still fall to the wayside in terms of gear and equipment compared to like soft level units or even civilians that have access to just higher end stuff. So
yeah, we do have access to really nice stuff. Can you imagine if you could have this kind of access to this kind of gear while you're in the Marines? Like, if the government said, "Hey, here, call Short Action Customs and just get whatever you want,"
right? or my favorite so far. So one of the things that like not many people know about is like we have this thing so there's 4 sniper schoolhouse. There was 4. One of them closed down in 2015, which is the Hawaii schoolhouse. But we have 3 other schoolhouses: Camp Pendleton, Camp Lejeune, and then Quantico. And so all 3 of those schoolhouses have what we call God books. It's a green book that are handwritten names of individuals that have gone through sniper school from this is all the way back to the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And so we sniper check people because people will put on the resumes for the FBI or their agencies or whatever, like, hey, I was a sniper, so and so. So they'll send back to that schoolhouse like, hey, we're just checking up on this guy. He used sniper school as a reference or whatever. And sometimes they don't come back. They don't come back legit, right? Because
right.
It says right here like, hey, this guy didn't pass, or we have no records of him showing up anywhere in the time frame that he was supposed to be in the Marine Corps. But anyways, one of my favorites that I've heard when someone was asking me like, yeah, some guy that said he was a sniper said that like you guys would hand load your own rounds and take it to combat. I'm like, fuck. I want to know what unit that guy was in.
He was in the special unit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess so even hand loading would have been helpful, huh?
Yeah. I didn't get into hand loading until 2016, 17. My good friend, I consider him my mentor of long range shooting. Solomon, he's out of California. He's the one that really taught me everything. And this is how I knew the precision rifle community was special, is when I first started competing, he literally would load all my ammo for a 2-day match.
Wow. Wow.
I
That's
mean,
awesome.
that's crazy. And like he still right now is my go-to guy to, you know, when I'm developing a load or whatever to kind of help me out and give, because I am still more of like a like hand loading. I haven't tinkered yet. I like wanted the plug and plays because like I use reloading as a necessary evil to help me bridge the gap to be obviously control my hand loads, but also to understand it as the instructor. But I think next year, I think one of my goals is to really like tinker and do what you do, or one of our mutual friends that we have that I really enjoy is Keith Rudisil. Keith he's a character, but I just want to pick your guys' brains about how you guys
Keith is funny.
super tight groups and what it takes to do that.
I told you I went out this morning, and this is always fun. Well, but I don't want to show too much. But all right, I'm not going to show it. But I just went out this morning and I shot a 5-shot group, 3.36 inches at 1,000, 2.19 inches tall, 2.5 inches wide. And I don't know, man. When I do that, it's like, oh man, this barrel's good, you know. And then I can't wait to go back out there and see if we can get better. And we haven't even done anything other than just adjust the tuner on this barrel. That's all we did was a tuner test this morning, and it took that barrel from 6 inches down to 2.5, and that's exciting to me, you know.
So I have a question for you. So all right, so I had issues at this previous PRS finale, but it's a 6.5-47 load, run 135 A tips, and I had like 15 rounds left over, but that barrel that I had for the finale, I pulled it off, and I spun on a second barrel that was cut the same time, right? And so I spun that barrel on, and then I shot the leftover rounds through it. And so, I mean, it yielded after 9 shots. I mean, it yielded a super nice spread. Like, I mean, I'm talking ES like single digits, 9 over 9 shots. But my group was heinous. Like, it was probably like a inch,
Yeah,
and a half, right? So like
harmonics are off. So the
that's
combustion is good.
harmonics.
Harmonics are off. So if you have a tuner, I know you run my tuners, but if you have a tuner on that one, just turn that tuner until the groups are small, and now you line the two up, you're done. If you had a small group and large ES, then I would say, well, change that powder, right? Powder charge up or down, and line that up. It's just, if you think about it, it's just a game of balance. You have your combustion. You got to get that under control, because even if you have a small group at 100 yards but very big ES or very high ES, then they're not going to perform well at long range. So if you have big, large ES, extreme spread, meaning speed variation, and I know you know this, but people that may be watching that they may not understand what ES is. If your speeds are all over the place, that's your combustion, right? Adjust your powder charge up or down until you find something that looks good. And even if the groups are big, don't worry about it, because you can fix that with seating depth or by adjusting your tuner. and now you line the 2 up, and now you're happy. Because you've probably seen this a lot. People say, well, I have 2 loads, right? The one that shoots real small has big ES, but, just go with the small groups. Well, no, because it works at 100, but you're going to get in trouble further down the road. It goes, well, yeah, but the one that has really low ES has big groups. Like, good. Just adjust the seating depth, or if you have a tuner, turn your tuner until you have small groups, and now it's done, right? Don't settle for one or the other. Just line them both up, and you'll be happy.
Yeah. All right.
It's really simple.
I enjoy the process. Like you said, especially when you do develop a load, and like, I mean, it shoots not only tight at 100, and then you take it out to distance, and it just like, I mean, you just print. And I don't have the ability to shoot paper. I mean, I do, but I guess I'm too lazy because I shoot on a public range.
Mm-hmm.
To have to like, shut the line down and head to the 550-yard line.
Yeah.
But when I do, I'll take time and I'll shoot. I'll shoot like a 10-inch plate at 600 yards. And I mean, yeah, like once I find a load, I mean, it's probably one of the best feelings in the world. It's
you can't miss.
Yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
It's so awesome. Because when you have a really good load, it really translates your skills to the target, right? The rifle is just the means to get it there, right? It's like your skills, you can apply everything to perfection, but if you don't have a good load, it's not gonna matter to some degree, right? A lot of people always say, well, it really doesn't matter, you if you're a good wind reader, you can beat. No, it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter how good. Emo Praslik said it best. I was listening to one of his podcasts about wind reading, because I'm the student of the game, man. I'm just like anybody else. I listen to Praslik. I listen to whoever's talking. Praslik he can read the wind, so I listen to him. But he was saying, if you suck, reading the wind is not going to help you. I texted him. I said, dude, that is one of the best quotes I've ever read, because he is right. And it hurt some feelings. I'm sure it hurt a lot of feelings when they heard that, but it's true. If you can't reliably shoot small groups at 100 yards, once you go long range, if you're shooting 2-3 inches at 100 yards and you're the best wind reader in the world, you're not going to be hitting a 10-inch target at 600 yards consistently, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's very, very satisfying when you have a good rifle that shoots really good with a good load, and then you can it literally gets boring, doesn't it? You're like, clang, 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 clang. Like, all right, that's enough of that, right?
I think my goals for next year for sure align with tinkering around more, picking your brain, probably blowing you up on about certain things, certain different bullets, combinations, because I think one thing that I've really just been putting a Band-Aid on lately is just trying to go with what has worked and not really truly understand why it's working, and because I hate giving reloading advice, because I still feel like I'm still like even though I've been hand loading now for 6 years, because I still feel like I'm super fresh to it, compared to like guys like you. How long have you been hand loading, Eric?
15 years. But
yeah, so
it's not okay, but see, how long really matters little compared to what purpose, right?
Yeah.
Because I know people that been hand loading for 60 years, right, or 50 years or whatever, but they've been hand loading, let's say, hunting ammunition, right?
Yeah.
Where they load to a book, they look at the book and say, oh, this is my overall length, and this is how I'm supposed to trim the brass, and you know what I mean? And they've been doing it for 50 years. Well, in that case, it really doesn't matter how long they've been doing it, right?
Yeah.
What matters is the purpose, right? Because the purpose forces you to get better, like in F class, like, or bench rest, or if you're shooting bench rest or F class, and you say, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna hand load like I'm going deer hunting. You're not gonna do well, right? So it's gonna the purpose of putting small groups on paper is gonna force you to learn and get better and seek out those guys that are doing, or those shooters that are actually doing really good, and get their advice, right? And they're going to say, well, you got to do this, do that, or the other, and it's just going to speed up your learning process. But it's like I said, a lot of it, I know people that have been hand loading for a couple of years, but because they've been hand loading with the purpose of shooting very small groups on target, they're really good, So it has to do with
Yep.
your purpose a lot, time versus purpose equals whatever
Yeah.
output you're seeking.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. That's good insight.
The here's the thing about, you said that the first time you saw me shooting pro, and I was just shooting just tiny dots on plates. The thing that, and it is not needed, and I know that for PRS you don't need a super smoking rifle like that shoots tiny groups, right? However, I think it's very helpful simply because of the feedback, right? Because if you're shooting, let's just say you shoot a half MOA gun or 1 MOA, right? Because the targets, let's say you're shooting a 1 MOA gun and the targets are anywhere from, let's say they're 1.5 or 2 MOA, right? And I never could do this, but I know there's guys that can read the target, the swing of the plate, right? But if you're shooting a 1 MOA gun on a 2-inch plate and you hold dead center, that means you can be half MOA to the right or half MOA to the left, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you shoot, you hold dead center, and you shoot, and you hit half MOA to the right. What are you going to do immediately? You're like, I'm going to get centered up, right? And you're going to move half MOA to the left.
Mm-hmm.
For now, you still have that half MOA right, half MOA left. So the next shot, you could actually miss the target.
Miss off the left, yeah.
Right? Because you're shooting another analogy is, imagine you shooting at a 12-inch basket and you're trying to make a basketball in there, right? And they say, well, you have the option to shoot a 4-inch basketball or a 10-inch basketball. Which one are you going to have the best chance of making the most baskets, right? It's the 4-inch, right? Because you have all that room to be wrong. So that's the way I look at it. Think of the target as the basket and the group as the ball, and you're throwing it at it, right? And you just have all that real estate that you can be off by on your wind. But the big thing is the feedback. What made you miss with what made you miss with a 2 MOA target with a 1 MOA gun is the feedback. Because you use that feed. You're never going to sit there and go, okay, that was half MOA right. My gun shoots 1 MOA. I should just stay here, right? Because you don't know which way you hit of that. You're not shooting all the shots at one time, right? You're shooting one, and you have to act on it. And it's just that feedback, that incorrect, I'm going to call it incorrect feedback. Inaccurate feedback is a better word, that makes you miss because you act on it and you're just shooting such a big group. But, on paper, you should never be able to miss a 2-inch or a 2 MOA target with a 1 MOA gun.
Yeah.
Except that people do.
I like that. I like the basketball analogy. I'm definitely going to use that. I've never, I understand exactly now, now that you say it, it's like, man, that makes sense. Because I just never explained it like that. But I think for me, that's just more insightful. Like, man, 4-inch, it's more relatable, right? I think it's more relatable right now because my daughter's in basketball, and this past weekend she wanted me to go to the rec center, the recreational center that we have here, to help her with her basketball. I'm a terrible basketball player. Let's just say that. And I was just there to catch her rebounds and pass her the ball. But it's fresh in my head. So that's a really great analogy.
So, what do you do? Like an after action report to yourself after every match, and go, okay, like how do you debrief every match?
Ooh, so I started writing in my notes. But essentially, what I'll go into lately is kind of my mindset going into the match, right? Because there's so many things with uh with competing, like you said, like to perform at a high level, right? I think going into a match, uh in having the correct mental headspace and making sure that like everything at home is in order is important, right? To make sure that you're not stressed, make sure that you're not pissing the wife off, or you're not pissing the kid off, whatever the case is, especially in my situation. So that's the very first thing that I'll address is like, okay, hey, what's going on into this? And then I think after each stage, what I'll do is I will write down notes in terms of like what I did well on and what I need to improve on. So I call it three goods and three sustainments and three improvements. So the sustainments is like, hey, you had really good follow through, if what I remember, meaning that like, hey, I didn't run the bolt immediately after pulling the trigger, or I had good recoil management, so I could see everything. Or let's say that I had bad time management where I dropped two shots, but I had like 15 seconds left. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, hey, I need to be able to slow down. So then I'll compile that for each stage, and then I'll look at it, and then I will head back to the next practice session and work on those things, specifically the stages that I felt like I struggled on, and the skill sets around those stages of what that stage was supposed to test me on as a rifle shooter.
That's interesting. That's something that I very seldom do, but I'm starting to do. Because in F class it's like, well, what could you really do wrong, right? But it's I'm focusing mainly on the mental aspect now.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, what did I do right? What exactly what you just said? What can I improve on? But if you don't write it down, you literally forget, and then you go and make the exact same mistake at the next match, and you go, God dang it, I did it again. Well, you did it again because you never fixed it the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been just starting to do this the last few months now. It's really just helped me. I think it's just helped me stay proactive in a post stage, essentially ritual, so that like I don't completely fall apart when I do have a bad stage, right? Like if I have a really bad stage where like I get like a 3 out of 10 or whatever, and I'm getting 9s and 10s all day,
Right.
well, what separates a top level competitor is their ability to push through that, because you've seen it where people like shoot a bad group or whatever, and now they're just the rest of the day they're just sour, and it messes with the rest of their performance, whether they like to believe it or not.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've seen. I've done it myself. I haven't even. I mean, I've seen it, but I've done it. I'll have a bad string, and I'm pissed off. Like, okay, it started with a bad shot, and then I got pissed off, and I just started shooting really fast. Like, f this, you know what I mean? And then so that bad shot now just led to a bad string, right?
Yeah.
And then the bad string, you start going, well, I done screwed it up, so I'm just gonna, just throw away the rest of the day, right?
Yeah.
And then you just
there's always next time, right?
yeah, and then you just start throwing everything away, right? And then, you do that, and then you end up the next, then when it's all said and done, find out you lost by like 3 points or something. You're like, God dang it! If I had just stayed composed, I would have won. But I decided to throw it away, and of course that hurts even more, right?
Yeah.
But it's shooting. It's like anything else. It's a very mental sport, And
Yep.
if you don't, I call it the software. You have to keep the software updated as well. We're always worried about the hardware, but the software is something that people really need, like, to work on. I
Yeah.
tell people go, because they'll ask me for advice on, PRS. I'm like, nope, go watch Phil. He has that covered, because I don't, right? And it's something that we need to work on.
I think, it's funny that you say that, because on the other side of the spectrum, when people are like, "Hey, I'd like to get advice on reloading," I'm like, "You need to watch Eric Cortina's videos," and then I'll send him my favorite all time is "Stop Chasing the Lands." I love that.
Yeah, it's and that was a real realization that I had one day, the stop chasing the lands, where I'm like, am I moving? Am I literally taking my gun out of tune on my own, right? And this really goes back to me testing. And see, this is another
Yeah,
one of those things that I'm like, I'm gonna go test this, right? And
yeah,
I'm just gonna stay on top of this. And you have to literally throw yourself into the unknown to really be able to learn. You have to be
yeah,
uncomfortable to be able to learn.
yeah,
I've figured that out already, because most people will not even attempt this because they go, oh, what if I what if I lose the match because of it? Well, guess
Mhm.
what? The odds are very high that you're going to lose the match anyway, and learn nothing. So
Yeah,
I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to start testing this and see if it see if it helps and see if there's anything there. And you were asking earlier about what drives me and how do I stay motivated. This is one of those things, right? It's like, I'm gonna start testing this, and then I start testing, and then when I see that it starts to work, and I'm like, holy crap, and then I just want to do it more and more, right? And then until I kind of, and then I do it again and again, and then I realize, oh man, there's something here. And then, because the other thing I would see is a lot of shooters would say, oh, I've shot today. Let me go check my lands. Oh, my lands moved 3,000s. I'm going to advance my bullet 3,000s today. So now from one day to the next, they're shooting different seating depths, right? And then the next day they advance another 3,000s or whatever. And then by the end of the competition, they're like, oh my, you see their scores go just straight into the gutter, and they go, man, my barrel must be shut out, or my, like, no, you took it out of tune.
yeah,
Or the other one where a lot of people say, well, my rifle never started shooting good until I had about 600 rounds through it. It really
yeah,
came into, well, maybe you had the wrong seating depth from the get go.
yeah,
It was too long, and then the throat finally actually burned into your seating depth, and that's why I started shooting. It's just, you just got to stay on top of it and experiment. Just try it. But yeah, that stop chasing the lands. I finally did that, and I went a few years without telling anyone, and finally, I kept watching it. I kept seeing people do that at matches, and I'm like, all right, time for a video, and that's what I did.
what so I struggle with this as a because I'm sure that you are the same as me with your platform of like you attract a lot of newer shooters that want to get in a long range, right? And so what do you tell them is more important, in terms of like trying to like figure out what to learn first, right? Because I guess I have a hard time having them dive into reloading and hand loading at first, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like unless they like want to do it as like it's something for them to do. I guess like I try to avoid it at all costs, because there's a lot of great factory stuff and obviously it all comes down to your budget, right? Like, hey, what can you
Right.
afford? But I do like your analogy of like, hey, like if you're able to like if money is not an option, for sure, you just buy the best. Like I'm like that. I'm a buy once, grind once kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like I'm gonna buy the best that I can that's in my price range, and then I know without a reasonable doubt that okay, hey, it's me, not the rifle system. But anyways, because like lately, especially on my social media feed, I've been seeing people like, and I don't know if it's them trying to flex on like their knowledge or whatever, but like just putting information out that I feel like just confuses people in terms of like hand loading, external ballistics, and stuff like that, where it's like, man, you just start with the basics, man.
Yeah, I see that a lot. I mean, I'm in social media myself, and I do follow a lot of people, and because I'm social media and a lot of people follow me, then I get a lot of people messaging me going, "Hey, what do you think about this? Did you see this? What do you think? Is this right? Is this wrong?" And I'm like, try it. If it works for you, believe the target, right? That's my always my answer for everything. Believe the target. Don't believe me. Test it. But a lot of it's like I just look at it and I go, yeah, that ain't gonna fly, right? Because there's so many people just putting stuff out there. Here's what happens. A lot of it is just recycled information.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to throw people under the bus, but I've had many people that they'll call me up, they'll ask me a question, and you know me, I'll spend my time explaining how, what they're looking at, how to fix it and all that. And then later that evening, I see it posted on their social media as their own knowledge, right? And then when people start pushing and questioning it, then they come back to me, right? And then at some point, I just kind of cut them off, right? But I've seen that happen so many times where they, and cutting them off is really kind of a strong word. I don't do that, but they get to the point where they feel, I don't even have to cut them off. They feel like, I already know enough, because people start believing them, and people start posting things like, you got to follow so-and-so. He really knows this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then they start to believe it themselves. Like, dude, I already know, because they've asked enough questions. They feel they know. But then when it comes right down to it, it's like, that was just you asked. I simply answered the question that you asked.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to it underneath. And if you don't completely understand it, at some point you're gonna fall on your face.
Yeah.
But a lot of people get trapped in that. They'll see something online and they'll take it as gospel, and they say, well, so-and-so said to do this, so this is what I do. Well, fine, but did you test it?
Yep.
Ultimately, I don't care what it is. Test it. I've tested stuff that I am 100% sure it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And then it works, and I go, oh, crap. And then, that's something that I also find exciting. But yeah, it's hard for a new shooter. Social media is great because there's a lot of information out there, but it's really bad because there's a lot of information out there.
lot of questionable information.
Well, yeah, and the problem is, right, they don't know how to weed it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, Speedy was here, and we spent a whole day together, and we're discussing a lot of different topics. But there was things that I would ask him, and he'd just laugh, and he's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm telling you, let's talk about it." And he's like, "Well, that's stupid." Like, I know, but it's just because his experience, right?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, that's not even worth discussing, right?
Yeah.
But new shooters have it tough. Again, they have it easy and tough. And so I guess back to your original question is, where do I get them started? Mm-hmm. They come to me and said, I want to learn how to shoot long range. I'm like, perfect. Yeah. I can teach you. Like, all right. What's the first thing I need to do? And I'm like, the first thing you need to do is go to 100 yards and shoot small groups. Yeah. Well, I want to shoot long range. Well, yeah, at first I need to know that you can shoot 100 yards. Well, I shoot 100 yards all the time. Well, yeah, but now we're going to do it. Now we have a purpose, and we're going to make sure that you can shoot 5 consistent groups. I don't even care that they're small. I just need to know that you are consistent.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to shoot 100 yards. I want to shoot 500. So, quick story. My nephew, he was going through a shooting course. And of course, he comes and he wants me to teach him. I said, I teach you. I'll teach you. And he got here. He brought his AR because it was like a service rifle thing where he had to do kneeling and prone and, support it. And I said, okay. Shows up. And I said, all right, just lay down your mat and everything on the floor and show me how you set up. And he set up. And I'm like, okay, show me again. Break it all down and show me again. And I made him set up like 20 times in a row, right? And I'm like, no, you got to do this. And, just making everything more efficient. I said, okay, now show, let's break a shot, and I put a target on the wall and I'm like, just aim here and just shoot. And anyway, I had him dry fire and set up and break down and dry fire for like 4 hours. And he kept saying, when are we going to the range? I'm like, when you're ready. All I would say is when you're ready. We didn't go to the range all day because he wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome.
And he kept asking. It reminded me of Karate Kid, right? Just wax on, wax off. And I just say, he kept asking. And I said, when you're ready. But a lot of it that's literally, you have to start with the beginning, with the foundation. Yep. And I just have them shoot 100 yards. And I said, send me the targets. And oftentimes they don't ever come back. I'm like, okay, fine. You know what I mean?
I like that. That's similar to our in-person class, our 4-day intro class. We don't leave 100 yards because we have to see that that the rifle is performing what we need to before we start introducing external factors like wind and gravity and drag. So like, hey, so I call it murdering them at 100 yards, have them do, drills that just, stress their, capability of themselves as a shooter and their rifle. And obviously that helps us also work out the kinks of like issues, rifles not torque and stuff like that, or just like bad equipment, which we see a lot. And and then day 2 we'll go out because typically we only have 4 days with guys, but I mean if realistically if I could keep at about 100 yards for 3 or 4 days, like that would be ideal because realistically, like if that rifle is supposed to be a half minute of angle, like there's no reason why you can't produce a half minute all the time as a shooter,
Yeah, I tell them, I said, try, because these are mainly F-class guys. And I go, well, go to 100 and shoot groups and try different holds. Try hard pressure, low pressure, free recoil, whatever. Just try a bunch of different stuff and start logging it. And whatever you see that's working the best, just do it more often. And then while the barrel cools, dry fire. Just lay there and dry fire. And then when the barrel cools, shoot another group and then dry fire in between. And they don't like it much when I tell them that's what they need to do, but that's what you need to do.
Yep. Yeah.
But anyway, what's next, man? What's next for you?
So I got the AG Cup next week.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Gonna go get you a big old paycheck, huh?
Yeah. And honestly, like, I think, my priorities have slightly shifted. I came into the year pretty strong, wanting to compete, and be at that. But like you said, it takes a lot of mental and commitment that I realize that I just don't have at the moment with, again, just my professional goals as a, with our business, Modern Day Sniper. And then not only that, my daughter's turning 14 this year. She's in 8th grade. She starts her freshman year next year. And, the way I look at it is like, I only got 4 years left with her. So I know that I've been doing my best to be present more, if that makes sense. And it's hard to be present and be a top level competitor and have that mindset, right, of like going to the range every day and being at the range for 2 hours, dry firing and stuff like that. It's a lot, and then coming home to that. So I have just zero expectations next week, just other than to hang out with some of the top level competitors, pick their brain, see how they do things, and see how I can add it to my processes and teach my community of shooters that I influence and teach. So
Yeah, man, that's good stuff. Well, good luck at the AJ Cup. Hopefully, you bring back a big old paycheck.
yeah.
And yeah, there's definitely, how many shooters are going to be there?
I want to say it's in the like 40s, 30s or 40s.
Yeah, but these are all top shelf, right? 'Cause that's how you get into the AJ Cup.
Yeah, I mean, it's top shelf, and definitely like you have to have a pay, like you have to have money because there's a $750 on top of your regular registration fee, and then every match you shot, you paid an extra $250, you know, to get put into the pot. So, I mean, it's definitely a lot of money invested, which is, I think it's good for the sport because it, you know, lets you like, hey, I'm going to throw down on how good I am, you know, and gamble on yourself. So I think, depending on where your goals are at in the precision rifle community, I think it's definitely a way to go.
Well, good. Well, do well, and have fun.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Most of all, have fun, and you know, you got to keep it fun. You know that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man.
Yeah,
well, thanks for doing this. Let's do this again. Oh, wait, you got to nominate somebody. We almost left before nominating. You have to.
I have to nominate somebody for a podcast.
Oh yeah, that I need to talk to. It doesn't have to be somebody I know. It can be anybody, somebody that you can say, you got to talk to this person. This person been influential to me or helpful or whatever. Or
who would, man, the very first person that comes to mind that doesn't do podcasts is Solomon. But I would say like you should talk to Kalen if he's got time. I know he's been super busy lately, but yeah, talk to Kalen. I'll set you guys up on an email.
Okay, perfect. We've talked on Messenger. I'm gonna say, all right, buddy, you're up. You've been nominated. Once you're nominated, you can't say no. We should make that a informal rule.
That's right.
Kind of like what was it? The ice bucket challenge.
Yeah, that's right.
Once you're nominated, you have to do it.
Yeah.
All right, man. Again, thank you. Good luck at the AG Cup and kick ass, dude.
Thanks, Eric.
Later.